Here, we could use this. Well, it kind of looks like King Caesar. We'll just clear some space off the shelf back there. Oh my God, you're the worst imaginary assistant anyone's ever had. You know that, right? Hello to returning kaiju fans and welcome to the new ones. My name is Christian, but you can call me the Kaijuologist. Today's episode is brought to you by, getting fancy here. This is Juarez Tequila Silver, emphasis on the silver. It's technically my roommate's, so I'm not going to drink out of the bottle. But nobody needs to know. Bottoms up. Ooh. Viva la Gojira. Alright fans, so I recently acquired Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 1974 classic. It's been about 8 years since I've seen this one. And I've got to give a shout out to Nicholas Rask over on Toho Kingdom on Facebook. It's a great group. I would suggest you find it if you haven't already. He mentioned a website called Sumo Gorilla, and they have a bunch of fabulous bootlegs of Godzilla films that are super hard to find. I've been looking for Mechagodzilla for years now with no success, and finally I got a chance to see it again. So this evening, hence the Tequila Silver, we will be going into Jun Fukuda's classic Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Now, it's funny that a few days ago I was watching Final Wars to catch myself up on that film for the compare and contrast with Destroy All Monsters. You can definitely tell, I think Kitamura, the director for Final Wars, I think this was probably his favorite Godzilla film. There are so many interesting little similarities, and it's like serendipitous that I watched these two films so back to back because it just screams at me. We've got this the alien side plots, kind of prophecy, ancient Japanese side plots going on here. You've got super spy secret agents, the mutants, the Interpol agents, explosions. Holy cow, do these directors appreciate explosions. That said, though, Kitamura missed what Fukuda did very well with Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. I guess we'll dive in here with the plot. The plot is it's a little asinine, to be honest. It's all over the place, but fortunately the pacing of it is so well done that just when it's starting to sink in how miserable or dumb any of the characters are being, you jump to a new location, you jump to a new action sequence, you jump to a new kaiju sequence. It clips along briskly. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen this, and as a little kid, I remember this film being a lot longer. And I was stunned watching it this time how quickly this movie breezes by. It really doesn't take a breath for a minute. And I guess let's get the negatives out of the way. The detriment is absolutely to the human characters. I know we've got one protagonist who works at a cave for some reason. We've got an archaeologist who looks like a supermodel. Another cheeky thing Kitamura was referencing in Final Wars is the scientist who looks way too fabulous and beautiful to be a scientist. We've got Interpol agents everywhere that pop up very conveniently whenever we need them to. The aliens this time around, they're from the third black hole from the sun. So I think I'm confusing the sitcom and the actual monsters now. So they look like cheap Planet of the Apes ripoffs. It's not all bad, though, to be honest. It's kind of cheesy fun. They actually, I remember when I was a little kid watching them, they kind of freaked me out, especially the one sequence on the boat with the gun chase and the guy's got the King Caesar statue, and you don't know where he is, and it's just dead silent for a long time. I'll give Fukuda some points here. He does a nice job of kind of building the suspense, the tension, the mystery of it. That said, though, yeah, the script doesn't do any of the main characters much service. Anytime they have a conflict and you're remotely starting to connect to them, we switch wildly to almost a whole nother group of people, and they're all interconnected, but the relationships are not fleshed out. I mean, like the main professor who's being forced to help fix Mechagodzilla, he's got a daughter, and she's, I think, dating someone, and they're involved, and it's all over the place. It's all over the place, but thankfully it keeps moving. This is the difference. This is what Kitamura missed with Final Wars, was he had just as asinine of a plot, but he seemed to take time with it, which gave the viewers enough time to sit there and really think, okay, I've noticed this plot is problematic and a little crazy and a little haphazard, but then he gives it another 5 minutes, and by that point you're going, oh, now I'm watching a bad movie, aren't I? Fukuda keeps Mechagodzilla moving right along beautifully. So it's a crazy film, but it's a fun film in that sense. Like, for this style of kaiju film, he absolutely nails the pacing. And it's the same with the kaiju action. I really like how staggered the kaiju action is through this film. You get a nice fight with Mechagodzilla and Anguirus. You get that nice factory scene with Godzilla and Mechagodzilla. The reveal of King Caesar into the big final battle. It paces itself better than a lot of the Showa period movies had been at this point. And so, again, props there. So one of the things this script doesn't exactly handle well are reveals in general, which is a problem because the script, it feels a lot almost like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster to me, in this kind of nice blend of typical kaiju action. We've got our scientists there and everything, but we've got kind of this, I don't know, spy thriller detective plot going on that's really fun too. That said, though, it doesn't execute it very well. As I mentioned, these Interpol agents that just, they manage to pop up frequently, anywhere, everywhere, just at the right time. And they're so effective at popping up at the right time that you almost wonder how they haven't defeated the aliens or even stopped the construction of Mechagodzilla altogether. The whole thing is baffling. And likewise, these aliens are not the Xylians from Astro Monster. They're not even the Kilax. They will betray their own kind pretty easily. They're just not that smart. There's this weird... And someone can help me with this if I missed something here, if there are two different caves going on. But it seems like at the top of the film, we discover the cave with the King Caesar statue. And that same cave, further back into it, is the aliens' hideout that we later discover. But the aliens are aware of the prophecy, they're aware of King Caesar, they're aware of the fact that their monster, Mechagodzilla, is part of this prophecy. It seems like they could have done a whole lot more to prevent it. If they're in the same cave, they could have gone and destroyed the relics. They could have prevented the whole thing. So, I guess suspension of disbelief here, folks. That's the key to enjoying this one. But as far as reveals go, like the reveal of the aliens is very abrupt. I think nowadays to us it just feels obvious, because aliens were such an easy plot point for so many of these films at this point that it was just kind of a given. Mechagodzilla is controlled by the aliens. But a smarter screenplay could have found a way to reveal the aliens in a less abrupt and anticlimactic manner. Like, it's just, you're watching the monsters battle and then suddenly, bam, there's the aliens and they're sitting at their control booth. It's not very exciting for all the build-up and suspense they've been trying to put into the early part of the film. Likewise, the whole, this mystery of there being two Godzillas. I wish the filmmakers had chosen either to stick to, really convincing us that it's Godzilla, give him his traditional roar, give him the traditional blue, atomic breath. It almost feels like, why did we even hide Godzilla in the first place? The aliens never extrapolate into a strategy here about why they were hiding their Mechagodzilla or making it look like Godzilla. So why are we trying to fool the viewers even though we're not? It's right off the bat very apparent and obvious with the weird screechy Mechagodzilla roar, which, dear God, it's a terrible roar. It sounds like nails on a chalkboard. If I ever have to hear someone complain about Titanosaurus and his roar again, help me. Help me. Mechagodzilla's roar, it's miserable. It's painful to listen to. But, and they do this interesting thing too with Mechagodzilla, where when he's disguised as Godzilla, sometimes we're using the actual suit for the movie, and he looks very good. And then sometimes we have the cheap, obviously fake Mechagodzilla in disguise suit, which looks terrible, but at least makes sense within the plot. And I wish they had just decided to use one suit or the other. Again, by the time we reveal Mechagodzilla, we've lost most of the air. We've lost most of the energy to that reveal. The effect is great. The effect looks great. The sequence which he is revealed is fantastic, but there's no suspense to it. There's not even a question in the audience's mind if this is Godzilla or not, and that could have been something fun to play with. The other reveal is, when he shoots the gorilla alien off the boat, and he has the King Caesar statue, and you think for a moment, oh, dang it, the whole plot is fucked now, we lost the statue. And you could have actually kept that suspense going for a bit. But it's like the next scene, he's like, yeah, I switched out the statue for a fake one. And they're laughing about it. Like, there is no tension, there is no nice little reveal there. It's like, why even have this plot point if you were going to kill all the excitement of it 30 seconds later with the characters laughing about it like it's an in-joke. So, yeah, to be honest, I can't say it's not a fun film. It really is. It clips along nicely enough that most of this doesn't sit in your brain. But I've sat here and thought about it for about 48 hours, and I'm like, wow, this script doesn't add up very well. But that said, the whole point is to get to the kaiju, so let's get to the kaiju. The kaiju in this film really do excel. Godzilla's character works really nicely in this film, and this is again something Kitamura really latched onto with Final Wars, is this idea that Godzilla is he's like a superhero. He is undefeatable. He is crazy intense. He can take the craziest beating and he just keeps getting up again. And they did a great job in this film with that. I mean, the amount of explosions. These poor kaiju actors, this must have been one of the more dangerous films, because I cannot believe how many explosions are constantly going on around these actors. Props to them for putting up with it and for not dying and being burnt alive in the process. That said, the Godzilla suit's a little problematic for me. It looks better than Megalon. I think they adjusted some stuff in the face to give him a little more of a ferocious demeanor. But he's still a little more anthropomorphic than I like to see Godzilla. And then about halfway through the movie, it's like, I wonder if the suit got damaged. There's something about the eyebrows that look very plastered on all of a sudden. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something looks very, it doesn't jive with the rest of the suit. The dorsal fins, the spikes Godzilla typically has, more so than ever, they look like silver pillows. They do not look imposing or threatening or intimidating the way they have in other films in the Showa period, and certainly later on into the Heisei and Millennium. The dorsal fins are a bit of a mystery to me here. So the suit, it's not my favorite. It's not terrible. I see what they were going for with kind of a heroic, empowered looking Godzilla, but yeah, it misses the mark a little bit. King Caesar, on the other hand, he looks great in this film. She makes you realize how much we kind of messed him up with Final Wars. Final Wars, he has this weird long neck going on. The head doesn't quite fit right. He looks much more animalistic in the Showa period. And there is something weird about him. It's almost like aesthetically he doesn't quite fit in with the other kaiju of this universe of the Showa period. But that said, there's a charm to him I can't quite put my thumb on, but I really do enjoy King Caesar. And it's fun too to get to see him fight with Mechagodzilla on their own for a little bit. I always appreciate it in these films when you get to see a monster battle that doesn't have Godzilla. As much as we love Godzilla, we kind of know what to expect when he shows up to a battle. It's fun to see the other kaiju mix it up here. King Caesar, he looks great. He's got that fun, kind of spunky, go-getter personality. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is that makes him so charming, but he's a very charming monster. Maybe it's the fluffy ears that stand on end. I don't know. We get a nice little cameo from Anguirus here. It's weird. It's weird that he's burrowing underground. I feel like, and maybe this is something someone else can help me out with. It feels more like a Baragon thing. I almost wonder if this was again supposed to be a Baragon moment, that like Gorosaurus and Destroy All Monsters, we swapped out the monsters at the last minute because the suit wasn't good, or we chickened out of the idea. That said, though, it works. It's nice because it's kind of an homage to Raids again, Godzilla Raids again, to see Godzilla and Anguirus fighting again, or at least fake Godzilla. It also sets up Mechagodzilla as a really intimidating enemy. To see how like brutal he is, to see poor Anguirus just gushing blood everywhere. It definitely raises the stakes for the monster battle to come. So in that sense, I do appreciate it. And then we got Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla, I love this design. I think at the end of the day, Kiryu from the Millennium series might be my favorite design, but there is something just so retro, badass cool about this original 70s design I just can't get over. He looks mean, he looks robotic, he does look a little more alien, like there is something unearthly and inorganic about him that I really like. I've already voiced my complaint. That roar, dear God, that roar. I kind of hear what they were going for, but it is so annoying. And he just screams that high-pitched, terrible noise like so much of this movie. Even a few minutes in, I'm like, end it, please end it. That said, though, the personality, as I mentioned, like you get to see him rip into Anguirus. His first fight with Godzilla is pretty good. And then seeing him, I mean, the moment I love is when Godzilla and King Caesar are on both sides of him. He rotates his head backwards. He's shooting at King Caesar. He's shooting at Godzilla. He can fire in any direction. It's just such a good battle. He's such a good villain. He's got so many crazy weapons. He puts up such a nice fight. You just can't help but love this villain. He is that villain that you love to hate. Now, sticking to my theme of having the categories within the kaiju films, this one definitely falls very squarely under the versus category. And it's not the best versus film, but it's not a terrible versus film. It doesn't feel quite as lazy, I suppose, as some of the 70s Showa ones do. It's a nice little plot point that Anguirus goes off to warn Godzilla about this other monster attacking Japan and kind of let him know someone's on your turf, show up, kick his butt. It is weird, though. It's never really explained. What is Anguirus doing? Does Anguirus think that's Godzilla, or does he know it's another monster and he's trying to get him off the Japanese turf before Godzilla has to show up and intervene? I'm not sure. I do wish there was a little more explanation for all of that. That said, though, the thing this film does the best that matters in a versus film is the tension of the battle. You get to see Godzilla really have his ass handed to him a lot through this movie, and that's where we get this kind of superhero effect to Godzilla, that he is bleeding, he is gushing blood, he's got the missiles stuck in him, he gets blown off a few cliffs in this movie, and he just keeps getting back up and keeps fighting. And that's definitely the spirit of Godzilla that we all love. We love that indomitable king of the monsters aspect to him. And then Mechagodzilla as well, I kind of already covered this. He just has a very interesting arsenal of attacks that he can implement. And so the battle is just fascinating to watch, because every time you think you've seen Mechagodzilla kind of play his full hand of cards, he's got another trick up his sleeve. And God bless whoever was doing the special effects, because compared to Megalon, this is a whole nother realm. When you think that the last film was Godzilla versus Megalon, which has almost no effects and not very convincing effects for the ones they do have, this film is on a whole nother level. The first battle in the factory sequence, I mean, I can't imagine what acting in those suits must have been like, because there's like 7 fires around them at any point, and every time you think you have seen a big explosion, the directors are like, hold up, no, here's a bigger explosion, and here's an even bigger one. It's fantastic. You can't help but just love it. So quickly touch on the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is fantastic. It's very interesting in that it doesn't seem like it should fit. And you know, I guess maybe that's one of the things this film does that a lot of, especially the Showa period, wasn't challenging itself in these ways. To have the first film where we have Godzilla fighting just a full-out robotic version of himself, the plot also has a lot of, you know, ancient guardian monster storylines going on with the prophecy. There's an interesting juxtaposition here of kind of a mythological view of the monsters, and at the same time a very heavy sci-fi aspect. And to see the sci-fi and fantasy meld so well together, it's fun. It's fun, and again, on paper, it doesn't necessarily seem like it should add up. But I give Fukuda a lot of props for taking that risk and exploring such different, I guess even genres within the kaiju genre. 2 very different plots that could have been films in and of themselves, and he kind of melds them together in a really fun way. But I think that speaks to the nature of the soundtrack, in that the soundtrack has this interesting high energy. One of the YouTube reviewers, I forget who it was, described it as like a jungle boogie effect, and they're dead right. I'm not sure what better way to describe it. It almost seems like a dance or a salsa or of some sort, but it fits. I'm not sure how it fits, but it fits very well, and it's one of the most memorable soundtracks in any of the Godzilla films. Like, I love this soundtrack. Oh, anyway, I can't recommend it enough. Like I said, if you're having trouble finding it like I was, sumogorilla.com. It was Japanese version with subtitles, which is, you know, usually how kaiju fans prefer it. But it's a fun film. It's not without its flaws, but it is definitely one of those moments for the Godzilla franchise that transcends a lot of the other filler movies. Mechagodzilla is a character that people outside of the kaiju genre recognize and appreciate, and so you gotta respect it. You gotta respect the movie. A lot of things go right in this, and someday, you know what, we'll do like a fun countdown of my favorite Mechagodzilla movies, because it's a character Toho loves and the audience loves, so they keep bringing him back. So we'll dive deeper into this later. Anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble. As always, I appreciate the views. I appreciate feedback and comments. Check out the other videos on the channel. Until next time, kaiju fans, a little more silver before we wrap it up. I am signing off from Denver, Colorado. We are the Mile High City. Oh, and we are getting higher all the time. Have a good one.